I am really excited to have us here this evening for this first Financial Investment Club Friday session. It's our inaugural session, and I'm going to ask Jennifer, why don't you go ahead and pull up the presentation for us.
All right.
As we go through, and we're going to run through what the agenda looks like for this evening, but it's a format after this session that will take hold and exist for all of the remaining sessions that we will have, and there will be 5 of them. So first of all, thank you for making this commitment on a Friday evening to come and focus on your financial health and well-being for yourself and your family. For those who don't know, I'm Adrienne Lance Lucas, and I'm the president of the Atlanta chapter. And we have set off this year to make sure that we are really focused on wealth building and taking it to the next step. And that's not just sharing information, but also putting things into practice. And so that's why we have this investment club. And I'm so thankful that we have a member of the Atlanta chapter who is actually in the financial services industry, who is willing to organize the club and get us started on this path. So if we go to, if you look at the layout for this evening, what we're going to do is, I'm going to talk just a little bit about the mission. I'm going to introduce you to our speaker for this evening, and then she's going to take you through some of our club goals. And at the end of this, we are going to break out into groups, small groups, to actually begin putting things into practice for our hands-on piece. So with that, Jennifer, let's go on to the next one and we can get started. Okay, so the mission of the club, let me just say, we are here to learn. We want to make sure that we are learning all of the various investment methods and strategies, and do that in a club environment with Spelman women. Our objective is to make sure that as we structure these events going forward, they will include a presentation from an expert. There may be a panel discussion as well, or guest speaker. But in addition to that, we will have presentations from all of you. So as we go through our small groups, each month when we come back together, each group will present on a different type of investment security, what we have learned in that particular asset class, and present to the body. The other piece that I want to mention to the club is we will be taking a look at only certain securities. We're not covering everything, but we will cover stocks, mutual funds, index funds, ETFs, and REITs. Those will be the 5. And each of the months that we are together, we will take on one of those categories to help us learn and put into action. As the structure of the club, we wanted to make sure that we could use our own money instead of pooling it together as an official club for an investment, a unified investment. But we're asking that each of you make a commitment to setting aside $25 a week in your personal investment account to invest in some of the securities that may have discussed either in this group session or in your breakout sessions. So that will be done collectively in your team. And as we come back together each month, we will be tracking to see which stocks or which securities were selected and how they have performed based on the research that you all have done. Now, the last point that I want to make here before we move on to the next piece of the program is that in order for your investment to be made as a group, we would like group consensus for the one that actually gets presented back to our group setting. And this will make a little bit more sense to you the further that we go along. We're asking that as you're in your groups, if a security is presented, that you all just rule by majority. So we're looking to have probably 5 members in a group. So the majority would be 3 out of 5. If you vote on a particular stock or mutual fund to invest, research, etc., that you would do that and present that. That does not preclude you, however, from choosing your own picks for your personal portfolio that we can talk about as the months go on. Okay. So Jennifer, go on to the next one. And I think we are going to turn it over to you. This is Jennifer McReynolds. She is the class of 2001. She will take you through her bio and get us kicked off for this evening. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Adrienne. Good evening, sisters. It's really great to be here with you today. I hope that you, my prayer for all of us is that we approach these next 5 sessions that we're going to have together before we break for the summer in a way where we're open-minded and we feel like this stuff is stuff that we can all learn at wherever we are in our investment journeys. And so we want to make it easy and achievable and fun at the same time. And so just for some background on me, I am class of 2001. I majored in econ. While I was at school, I had the chance, my husband and I had launched an internet company. And so we got a chance, it's so funny today because, everything that we do is online. But back in 99, when we launched the company, it was, the internet was fairly new. Internet companies were still new. And so we launched collegiate merchandise sites for both majority schools and HBCUs that were really too early for their time. And so it was a great idea. You used to only be able to come on campus to buy merchandise, right? And so we said, hey, why do people have to come from California to buy a Spelman sweatshirt? We should do this online. And so it was a great idea, but was too early for its time. And so that was my my entrance into technology. When I graduated from Spelman, I went to work on Wall Street as a fixed income analyst on the trading floor. And I did that up until right up until the mortgage crisis happened. So like up until 2007, and I absolutely loved it. It was fast paced, it was exciting. And it was just something that I've been incredibly fortunate in every area that I've touched in my life, in my career, to have enjoyed every part of it. Once the mortgage crisis happened, I ended up going to what was starting to be a venture capital firm that did impact investing. And so we launched, I was the 3rd member that joined to launch this $300 million tech fund that primarily made investments in the developing world. Anything that you could put on a cell phone for a basic like Nokia flip phone, we wanted to look at that would improve the lives of people making less than $3 a day. So again, that was super fun. I evaluated investments at the time. So really early stage companies, very entrepreneurial, that could change the landscape in that area that they operated in, we looked at. And so then I went into fundraising with the same company, and then left there when I had our last baby that the Lord blessed us with 16 years after our second child. And so joined my husband in our business. We do planning, financial planning and advisory, and have been doing that. We've had our office for 20 years now, and we operate all across the US, from Puerto Rico to Hawaii, and absolutely love it. And so my passion, if I could just choose, I work with families, individuals, and business owners, but my preference would be to work with women, just because I think that women experience things differently in our lives, and we have to think about things that don't affect men in our careers, children, staying out of work, caring for aging parents, potentially becoming divorced or widowed. And we want to make sure that we still have the opportunity to retire with enough money, with dignity, and potentially money that can exchange hands to the next generation. And so my passion is definitely working with women. And so with that, we just want to talk, Adrienne talked a little bit about this, but for us, it's about learning, right? We want to learn not just about the stock market, but really about a few different asset classes, mutual funds and index funds, ETFs, exchange traded funds, and then real estate, both in the real estate investment trust and actual physical real estate. So we want to evaluate a different security every month and really work towards how do we look at those investments. We also want to make sure we can make a return, right? So we want to make sure that we're picking things where we have the opportunity to make a return, where there could be some growth. And then we also, I think, want to be the model for what an alumni or an alumni group looks like in terms of an investment club. And so those are some of the goals for the club that we have. And so there are going to be a couple of roles. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. And so just be thinking about what role within your group you're going to play. And so Adrian will come back to this later on. And then I also wanted to mention that we do have to make a decision about what trading platform you want to use for your personal investment. Some of you already may be investing on your own, and you may have done that with Robinhood, or maybe you've done that with Stash or whatever other platform. And you can do that, certainly. I know that Robinhood and Stash allow you to buy stocks, and they allow you to buy ETFs. What they don't allow you to buy are mutual funds and index funds. And so these were some additional platforms that I know that you can use for all of it. And so we're not making a recommendation on which platform you should use, but you do need to be mindful that we're going to be looking at a few other things other than stocks and ETFs. And you want to have a platform where you can execute, if you choose, for those other asset classes that we're going to talk about. Okay. And so you do want to go ahead and open an individual brokerage account so that you can, purchase these things for yourself. Okay. And so we want to talk about tonight, we just want to open it up and spend some time, because the first asset class that we're going to look at are stocks. And so we want to really talk about how do you evaluate a stock, especially as we break you all down into groups. Okay. And so some of you may already have been purchasing, and you may have your own methodology for how you do that. In a group setting, we wanted to present something that could be followed in a way that that could be cookie cutter, so that everyone has a way to look at it. And so it's not just about, I have a stock tip that you should buy, although it could start there, right? But what do you want to look for in terms of how to evaluate a stock, okay? And so one of the things that we want to make sure that does happen within your groups is there should be some kind of write-up. And so I want to share that with you real quick as to what that would look like. Let me just see. Okay. And look, we want to make this, I think, Adrian, this is all about learning. And so we do want to make this as easy as possible, and not make this overly cumbersome. But in your write-up, you want to have a couple of things that's going to help you prepare a presentation for you to present whatever your investment is to your own group, but also to the greater club. And so in that write-up, it should be something that's pretty easy for you to get, that includes the company background, and you all will have access to all of the resources that we talk about in terms of the formatting and for all of this, so you can do your analysis. And so you want to have in your write-up a company, what's the company about, okay? And so we are going to talk about the first stock. Just as an example that I picked, is called Wabash National Corporation. And so in that, you want to give some feedback what the company's about. So Wabash has been around since 1991, and they're headquartered in Indiana. They primarily are a trailer manufacturer, and they actually have been a leader in the innovation of the technology that is used in those trailers, okay? And so for them, they do a number of different products. And so you'll see that down below. So it's trailers, platform trailers, trucks. They also do refrigerated trucks, and then some specialty trucks for not just food, but also to carry pharmaceutical equipment, like some vaccines that need refrigeration. And so they have been able to grow from 1991, not just organically, but also by acquisitions as well. And so there are three segments that they operate in. One is the commercial trailers, right? So those trucks that you see out. Then they have the diversified products, which include food and, again, parts and tanks. And then the final mile products, which are dry body trucks and fiberglass paneling. So really everything having to do with the trucking industry, they've specialized in, okay? And so the next section that you want to include in your write-up, and really you guys, your write-up should be 2 pages at most. If you can keep it to 1 page, that would be great. But no more than 2 pages. This is not, we're not writing papers here, but this is something that's going to help you when you think about whether this is going to be a good investment or not. Okay. What is something about their industry and competition? So I've included just some information there on, you know, a little history on the trucking industry. So the trucking industry represents almost an $800 billion industry as of 2018. And the transportation industry accounted for 80% of that. 71% of that was freight, was just freight tonnage. So anything that was carried by trucks, with the balance of that being on a train, or maybe a train and airlines. And so we talked a little bit about in the report, you know, how the transportation industry has kind of moved really in the last 20 years. And it's a really cyclical industry. So as there are recessions, you tend to see the same follow when it comes to the trucking industry, right? But overall, there is demand for trucking, you know, for freight, for being able to move things from one point to another, even though there is going to be some pressure on the human capital part of that, right? Because they are creating trucks that actually can drive, self-driving trucks. It seems kind of scary to me, but they are creating these to really kind of outsource the people part of that, okay? So you want to have something about the industry and the competition, but also what makes this company strong, right? Some of that is going to be, you know, based on the information that you see in your research. Part of that is emotional, how you feel about it, but the other parts of it are what makes this company strong. And so look, for Wabash, it was that they've been in the industry since 1991, and they've developed some really great core relationships with top tier trucking companies. Okay. The other thing is their technology and the innovation within the technology in their trucks. So they've been able to create what they call the DuraPlate technology, which actually reduces the weight of trucks, right? So they've in their manufacturing of the trucks, they can now reduce the weight by up to 300 pounds, which is huge when you're talking about carrying freight. And then it's significant brand recognition, again, because they've been around for so long, okay? And so those are some of the things you want included in your write-up, to just touch on the company background, you know, what the industry is about, the competition. And then the last part of that is going to be your analysis, which is where I think I want to spend the bulk of my time on. And for those of you, let me just, before I share my screen, and those that I can see, anybody here numbers people? If you guys, I mean, I'm trying to see if I can see all of you guys in a grid, for those of you that are showing your camera. And it's okay if you're not, right? Like some of you may not even like Excel spreadsheets, and that's perfectly okay, all right? Because I see some of you shaking your heads. Look, we want this to be easy and cookie cutter, where we can point you in the direction of where you need to find some of this, these metrics or criteria to help you make a decision on whether you want to invest, okay? And so I don't want you, I even had my daughter help me create this spreadsheet where it would be simple enough to use. And so those of you that don't like Excel and don't like numbers, I don't want you to get freaked out by it, okay? And so, but I do want to point out a few things to you. First is really, before looking at this, there are some tabs down here at the bottom. And so if you notice here, I've included a cheat sheet, okay? And so I want you to refer to that, because each metric has sort of the definition behind that metric. And then also, you know, either how you calculate it or where you would find it, okay? Which is important, especially for those of you that aren't sure, right? And never had to evaluate a company or a stock or an investment. And so I've defined them, but also have told you, you know, either how to calculate or where to find them, okay? And so I've given you this, you guys will have this as the example. And then you guys can then go and use, you know, in the first tab here is where you're going to go and plug in. And so what I want you to do is when you're picking a stock or when you're looking at an investment is you're also going to look at what are the competitors. And I'm just saying, take 2 additional companies that are competition. And so in my example for Wabash, there were 2 companies, Rev Group and then Oshkosh, which are 2 additional companies that are in the trucking and freight industry that I compared them to, okay? Because you want to see in terms of the industry, you know, what it looks like. And so you got to have something to compare it to if you're going to make a recommendation on whether you guys as a group or as the overall club should be purchasing the stock of whatever company, okay? The ticker symbol is going to be whatever the symbol is that's listed on, you know, the exchange. And so I've included in, and you will see this, you're going to have access to the Google Drive, but I've included where you should go to go find some of this information, right? Google Finance and Yahoo Finance are going to be your friends, okay? There's just a ton of information that's located on there. And actually you will even be able to find financials. So like revenue and net income are actually, you can find them on both Google and Yahoo Finance. The company websites are going to be your best friend. I've got all of this is listed in the resources that we're going to give you guys access to. But the company websites is another great place for you to go find. Within the company website and the investor relations section, that is where they keep the annual reports. That's where they keep the quarterly reports. And so you're going to want to take a look at that stuff or that information there because it makes it very, very easy. Okay. The price you're going to find on Google Finance or Yahoo Finance, and that is where the stock closed either that day or the day before, just depending on at what time of the day you go. The market capitalization really is going to tell you how big the company is, right? So are they a small cap? So small capitalization, and in the cheat sheet, I believe that it's either on the cheat sheet here or another in the Word document cheat sheet. And I think there's a little bit of a delay. I must have it on the Word, but I give you, oh, here we go. The market capitalization will tell you where, at what stage the company is. Okay. So if they're between 250 million and 2 billion in market cap, that they're a small cap. If they're between 2 billion and 10 million, they're a medium cap company. And if they're above 10 million, they're a larger cap company. Well, what does that mean? If it's a larger cap company, they tend to be a little bit more stable, okay? Because they're just a much bigger company, okay? Smaller cap companies have a ton of potential growth that is yet to be realized, but they could be all over the place, right? Because they're not as big and they could be subject to the market, the economy, turns in the economy, whether up or down. So that just gives you a little bit of background on what the market cap means. There's sectors, so you're going to need to identify what sector your stock is in. And there's 11 sectors. I've included that in the cheat sheet for you to look up. And then look, so you don't necessarily have to use every single metric that I have on here, but these will kind of help you to evaluate whether you think your investment is a good return, is a good investment. Okay. So you want to for sure include revenue and net income for sure. The return on equity, let me show you here. And look, this may sound like, again, like it's foreign, but I encourage you that in the cheat sheet, I've broken it down in a way where it makes sense and it's easier to understand. And so look, in terms of revenue, one of the things is I want you to use multiple years. And the reason you want to use multiple years is you want to see, is their revenue increasing, right? You can't look at it just for 1 year and say, oh yeah, I think their revenue is really good. Well, what are you comparing that to, right? So you should compare that to what they've done in prior years. I did 2019 up to 2019, because for some of the companies, 2020 annual reports weren't out yet. So it's up to you. And so I chose 2019, 2017 through 2019 for all of the companies because I could find an annual report for all of those. And so you want to look at, is revenue increasing? Then you want to look at net income and you want to see, hey, is it going up year to year? And if it's not, you want to question. That's where you want to question, oh my God, what happened there, right? And so I know, so this is the company Wabash on the top line here. In 2018, I wanted to see why did they go down from 2017 to 2018 net income. And I found out that they had made an acquisition. And so they, had to spend money on the acquisition. They had some goodwill they ended up having to write off. So they ended up taking a write-off. And so all of that actually ended up, had them end up with lower net income, right? But when you see, so one of their competitors, I just want to point you to it. If you notice here, their net income was like negative in 2019. I want you to look at those things and say, oh, wow, we should find out why that is, right? So little blips in numbers help you to formulate questions about what was going on. Thank God we live in the era of information, right? You can actually Google everything today. And so you can find out, hey, what happened with Rev Group in 2019 that caused their net income to be negative, right? And so, so I want you to have the numbers so that you can formulate questions about what was going on. And then you can go look that up. Some of that, they'll report it in the actual annual report. Some of that will just be in the news cycle. The companies, if they're a public company, and we're evaluating all companies that are public, will actually in their company websites, in their investor relations section, will have a news reel as well. But you can also go outside of the company and see what else some other places are actually, reporting news on them, because you may find out something additional. Okay. So I want you to use, the numbers tell a story. And so ultimately, what you should see is, if you believe the numbers are going up, the trends are going up, everything looks positive, that you should be able to make a recommendation to actually buy the stock. Okay. So if you look at, when I compared it to their closest competitor, Rev Group, based on, they had several lawsuits they were dealing with. They also wrote off a bunch of stuff. They had some key issues that I said, oh gosh, we're not buying their competitor for sure. But it just made me feel better about Wabash's stock overall. Okay. So let me stop there, because I know that this could be a lot. And I want to stop and ask, do you guys have any questions so far? Simone?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did. I had actually just put it in chat, just kind of listening to you and following along on the Excel spreadsheet. What is EPS?
That's the earnings per share.
Okay.
So yeah. So let me, I'm going to go back real quick, because I want you guys to always refer back to the cheat sheet so that you can, I don't know why there's a little bit of a delay, so that you can always see, is the company's earnings divided by the total number of shares it has on the market. A high EPS, or an EPS that's trending up, can be a sign that the stock is healthy and a potential opportunity for investors. Okay. So I've tried to include things in there that will help you when you're making your, your case for why maybe you guys should buy that stock. Okay. And I think,
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Simone.
Suzette has a question, Jennifer.
Okay, what was the question?
Jennifer, what's the presentation time frame that we're to present our stock?
What is the time frame for the presentation? I'm sorry.
Yeah, how long should the presentation be?
It really shouldn't be very long. We're spending a little bit more time on it just because I want to make sure that you guys, you know, kind of understand how it all works. But it really should not be a long presentation. I think when we're presenting, I think it should be what, 5 minutes, Adrian?
5 minutes max.
Yeah,
You
5
just
minutes.
come on and
max.
say, you know, our group met, we chose this stock, and you want to tell why you chose it, and that's it. And then we'll go through
Okay.
what the performance is. But all this background that she's giving you is how you get to the conclusion of which stock your group is going to choose.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And when you are, and one thing to keep in mind is that when you're looking at the annual reports, when you're comparing numbers, that you're actually comparing numbers for the same time period, okay? And so what does that mean is that you can go on Google Finance today and see that the stock price is what it is today, right? And that's, and you should keep that in mind. But in some of your calculations, you're going to need to, if you're doing 2019 numbers and their year end happens to be in September, is that you want to reflect back on, make sure that all your numbers are September 30th time frame. Okay, not that you're using, you know, the stock price for today in a calculation that you needed based on the September time frame. Okay, so you may have to go back to September. What's great about, and I'm happy to show you guys because maybe that'll make a little bit more sense if I do it, is to pull up Google Finance. And you guys can use Google and Yahoo Finance interchangeably. And actually be able to pinpoint to a specific point in time in the chart. So Adrian, do you think it's helpful to show that or come back to it later?
For the Google Finance piece?
Yeah. And should I, you know, just kind of show what a stock chart looks like on
Yeah,
Google
I think
Finance?
it would be helpful, and I want to make sure that you get through the full thing. We're at about 7:05 now, Jennifer, so that you can take them through the entire spreadsheet to make sure they have that the basic piece, and then maybe go back to the online resource.
So let me go back and share. I think, you know, at that, we've pretty much covered the whole spreadsheet. And so my encouragement is, look, what are the numbers that are important? I've kind of in the cheat sheet here, I'll indicate what numbers you should, what metrics are important when you're making your evaluation. Others are nice to have, and I've included them, but they're not really necessary. Like for me, I didn't really think the price to sales ratio was that important and not in our like investment club. Other people might think it's super important, but I've, you know, at each point tried to make sure that I included how you would calculate it and then where you would find it, okay? And so just to make it easy, beta, for example, beta, I've included in the resources where you could go to find beta. It's a little bit convoluted to actually calculate yourself, so I'm not going to have you guys do it, but you can actually Google what is the beta of Ford Motor Company, and it'll give you the number. And so is beta something you should consider? Maybe. Beta pretty much says how much movement you're going to have in a stock if it's above 1, okay? So 1 is like the baseline, it's where the actual market is. And so if it's higher than the market, if the beta is higher than 1, it says it's going to have a lot more upward movement and a lot more downward movement. If it's lower than 1, that means you're going to see less upward movement and less, you know, bottom movement. And is that important? Maybe. If you want something that's more stable and less volatile, then maybe the beta is important to you. And you might, you know, not care about beta at all if you're just looking for growth, right? So at each point, we've tried to include how you would calculate something, where you would find it, and why it may or may not be important, okay? And so let's see what else. that pretty much is it. The things that I've bracketed, I think are very, very important and that you should always include in your evaluation of your investment, okay? The others might be important and they may help you tell the story as to how, you know, strong that stock is. But these are all just things that help you with making your case for whether you should make an investment in that company or not. And you guys may see that when you're comparing the stock you pick to their two closest competitors, you may say, hey, we started off evaluating Home Depot and came out saying Ace Hardware is just a much better buy based on the numbers, okay? And that's fine too, but that's why you have to go through this to see what story the numbers tell, okay? Okay, so with that, I'm gonna stop sharing that and then I'm gonna go back to our presentation just to keep moving that along, just in terms of timing. We've got the cheat sheet. You're going to create a presentation. Again, it's not going to be a bunch of slides. The slides should include, again, the company background, a little bit about the industry, and then what the competition, you know, the competitive strengths of the company that you're evaluating is. And that's going to be, you know, with your 5-minute time frame of presenting to the overall group, and your financials will always be a part of that because the financials is where the story is actually told. You can't really see that here, which is why I chose to share the spreadsheet with you. And so with that, Adrian, I'm going to stop because I think the biggest portion is going to come next. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jennifer, first of all. That was a great overview. I want to pause because we have the survey that you all received just to join the club. We had a different level of expertise, right, or familiarity with just investing. So if you all can show by your reaction button, how many of you said that, you know, this is completely new, you're a complete novice when it comes to security investing? Are there any? A couple. Okay. Okay, you all can take that down. How many of you feel as though you know, you're playing in the market now, right? And so you feel a little bit comfortable that you might be able to go out and test and do the research because you understood the language. This is not your first time hearing her speak about some of these terms. Couple there. Okay, great. And Robin, I read it. All right, wonderful. And then how many of you this is just a refresher course for you. You could teach the class yourself if you wanted to. How many fit in that category? Crystal? Okay, just Crystal. Okay, fantastic. So what we're going to do is, based on the people that are on here tonight, we are going to go into the breakout rooms. And Jennifer, I'm going to ask you to go back to the slide where we talk about the the composition of the teams. And we're going to get ready to go through some of this. And we'll be floating, Jennifer and I will float through different rooms to answer questions, if you will. But what we'd like you to do is break out into the teams. You will have about 5 people on your team, okay? And your first assignment is choose a team name, exchange your contact information with your team, decide when you want to meet, and choose roles. And we talked about the roles earlier on. So we need someone who's going to step up and be your team leader. So that's why I wanted to see who feels comfortable, right? Has a little bit more knowledge than the others to actually lead the team. The second role that we had is we need someone just that's going to take the notes, as you know, what stocks are you researching? How are we putting that in? And Jennifer, I think you have a cheat sheet too with a list of stocks. So you're not starting from scratch. We're going to give you some stocks that you can take into your group and begin researching. Okay. And then you all come up with what the plan is there. And the third piece is you have to figure out who's actually going to put together the presentation and who's doing the pitch. So coming back to the group on a monthly basis to say, this is what our group did, this is the security that we selected, and this is how it performed month over month, given where we are. Does that sound good? Everyone get that for the instructions?
Can
Okay.
you repeat just the last part of what you just said?
Yes, in terms of the roles,
Yes.
you need a person that's going to present, who's willing to do the presentation,
Mhm.
and that's the presentation to this group body when we come back, because we want to know how the groups made their decision on which stocks or which securities that they chose. And then you have to have someone that, someone has to put the presentation together, right? And someone has to actually present it. It could be the same individual for some of those roles, but we're at least letting you know what the functions are that would be required in order to move forward. Good question, Simone. Okay, so any other questions before we go to the breakout?
Yes, so you mentioned, so each group may select their own, could be a different stock from another group. And we
Yes,
will
we're going to give
buy
you,
that stock for
so
multiple weeks?
say that again, Tracy.
We'll buy that stock for multiple weeks?
Yes, so the recommendation was to do at least a minimum $25 investment per week leading up to your next session, right? So you could choose to do one stock within that group, you could do multiple, or you could come up with your own. We just didn't want people to say, okay, where do I start with even thinking through any stock to research. So we're going to give you a sample list. It's up to you or your group to determine if you want to invest in that same one for those 4 weeks, or yes, for those 4 weeks before we get back together. This is a short month. So you'll have, you know, the 4 weeks before you get back together, you should be making those investments.
Got you. So then the next 4 weeks, you could potentially be buying something else. So every 4 weeks.
Correct.
changing
Correct.
something.
So the next 4 weeks, great question, Tracy. We are choosing a different type of security. So our next time that we get together, we're going to understand how to evaluate mutual funds. So this time is just on stocks. Next time we're going in mutual funds. After that, we're going to do index funds. After that, we're going to do ETFs, and then we're going to do real estate. So that's how it's going to go. And so it's up to you. We're just getting you started, right? But you may choose, I'm going to invest in stocks from now until whenever. But we want you to at least get the knowledge, start your investment, bring it back to the club so that we're all learning. And then we go on to the next asset class.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Adrian, have the groups been chosen? I was late. I'm sorry.
The groups have not been chosen, but what we're about to do, and I think Jennifer, can you set up our breakouts?
Okay, I'll start putting people in breakouts now.
Okay.
There are going to be 6 groups, looks like.
And if you guys want to go ahead and screenshot this, what's on the screen right now, that'll help you in the next 15 minutes for this exercise that we're about to do. Because I'm about to take this off the screen.
Yeah, that's going to be off the screen. And yes, let me talk about this club that we have right here. This is open to all Spelman alumni who are members of either the Atlanta chapter or another chapter. And if they're not a member of the chapter, they can make a donation to the chapter in order to participate. But we are being very intentional, ladies, about our wealth building, especially in this time of a pandemic. You know, you all have seen the statistics that for African Americans, we do not own real estate anymore. It is down before they started the Housing Act for equality. So if you don't own real estate, which is the largest wealth building engine for anyone, you know, we're going to be even further behind. And we've heard from Bank of America talk about the wealth gap, where we are 10 times less in our net worth than our white counterparts. So we have to change. And that's why we're doing this. We're committed to it, but it's for all of our Spelman sisters. Okay. So we are going to take only about 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes in these breakouts to go through team name, determine the roles, when we're going to meet to get back together to begin evaluating the stocks. And then we're going to come back for the group so that we can capture that information and wrap up showing you the timeline and then our next steps. Okay.
In terms of, and this will all be available to you. Adrian, what are your closing comments, or if there are any additional questions, because this is really it for, actually, that's not true. Here's some contact information. If you all have any questions between meetings that you want to reach out directly, my Gmail is right there. That is great. You can lock in my phone number. I'm really, really good with texts. So if you text me, I'm a lot better with texts. But I'm happy to help out. You know, if you have any stuck points, you're stuck somewhere and can't figure out, you know, how to make sense out of some number, or, you know, what you're supposed to do with your research or where to find something, you know, please reach out. I'm going to make sure, you know, once you all send your contact info for your teams, the team leads, when you guys send that in, we're going to go ahead and make sure that you have access to all the resources and templates to go ahead and start. And I know there was a hand up, Adrian. I can't see.
Yes,
who it was.
Kimberly, you have a
Okay.
question?
I do. Thank you. So my group and my group, we had a question in regards to the platforms, because we weren't 100% sure if we each individually choose a platform or if the group as a whole chooses one platform. And then also, are we determining the stock, or are we kind of having I guess, a number of stocks to choose from? How exactly is that process?
So each of you should choose your own platform, whatever platform works for you. She was just giving some suggestions. The key is to make sure that whatever platform you choose you are able to make purchases of each of those asset classes, the 5 asset classes. Okay. And your second question was
Stocks, and we have the list of stocks. Adrian, should I post it up?
yes.
Okay.
So that
Let me
they
share
have
that. And you all can make note. Adrian, can you talk about, while I'm looking for this, is every group member going to be picking their own stocks? Or are they just going to agree, you know, from the list of stocks? Let me just find, this is not it.
There can be overlap. It's fine if that's what you're getting at. If 2 groups choose the same stock, is that what you're saying?
No, group members, are they, okay, so here's the list of stocks. It should be coming up on the page. There are a list of 20.
Right.
This is going to be added to your resource list as well. But is that like the 5 team members, do they each pick a stock that they're going to flesh out, or do they just?
Yeah, each group can choose the way that they'd like to work. The recommendation is, though, that every individual member choose one of these stocks to research and then bring back to their small group. And then the small group, you all would do your presentation for your small group. And then the small group makes a consensus by majority vote on which one you will present to the big group the following month.
Okay.
Question: how will each group be reporting on the performance of whatever stock they pick? So
yes,
I mean,
yes.
how do the rest of us know who or what is, well, not necessarily who, but what's doing well, in case we'd like to add them to our portfolio as well?
Yes. So Jennifer, can you pull up the tracking sheet? This is another one of the tools that will be made available to you all, but you can track. And we will make this available for this group so you can see if group A chose Moderna and group, B chose Pfizer to present. We will show what they purchased it at, how it performed over that month, and we will track it each month for that on that spreadsheet. So we will all be able to see exactly where we come out at the end.
Hold on.
I got a question too.
Go ahead.
Who is,
Okay.
I think she's trying to pull the spreadsheet. Who is
Oh,
asking
okay.
the question?
I'll wait.
Is that Simone?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So just trying to, I think for the benefit of all of us, just trying to make sure we kind of have an idea for planning and just the frequency of our communication, since we've got to come together prepared. I don't know what the next date is, March 5th or whatever. So do you foresee meeting once a week to discuss, or do you anticipate that we may need to meet more frequently than that?
I think the group has to determine. However, you probably need to meet at least twice. One to
Twice a week.
determine which stocks each individual is going to research, and then once to make that vote and make your trades to ensure that they're done. I would suggest doing that sooner versus later so that you can see some movement in the stock performance before the next meeting.
So you're just saying at least twice before
At least twice.
Okay, so if we met once a week, we should be good.
Definitely. So this is the tracking spreadsheet,
Mhm.
Kimberly, that you all will have. So, and it's simple to fill in, right? You'll put the name of your investment. The account name is really the team name. Jennifer, I think there
Yeah,
should be the
I
updated
think
one in the Google Drive,
yeah.
but it'll be the team name, the ticker
Mhm.
symbol, how many shares you all purchased, what the price was. And so what that means is, ladies, you all may not purchase on the same day, right? So this where it has the team name, there's also going to be a column that has the member name, and then you'll have your team name. And that way we'll be able to see. You'll put in if there were any fees. Most of the platforms don't have a fee.
Sorry, Adrian. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
It'll automatically calculate for you the total cost. Jennifer, can you just make that a little bit bigger?
Yep.
That column that says the current quote, that's the column that you're going to fill in, but we'll probably all fill it in the day of the meeting because we'll see how it's performed. Okay, the market value will everything else will automatically calculate for you.
Mhm. And the purchase price is obviously the price that you all
Agreed.
paid at the time of your trade.
So are we all, as far as the purchase price, our small group, are we all purchasing the same price? Are we all looking at the same price?
No, your price might be different because if you buy it on Monday, it might be different from somebody that bought it on Tuesday. But what we will do, if you fill out the spreadsheet by person, we will aggregate it so that we'll know where the teams stand. Okay. So what we'll do, I think Jennifer there's a slight modification to this sheet.
There is.
So that
The one that you'll see will have will have the team names on there and then your name as well.
Right.
Well, a column for you to put your name on.
So Jennifer and Adrian had a question. So are we purchasing our selections at the same price point?
That's
So
what I
like
was trying to ask.
$25 or $30 or different price points?
So your it depends, right? Because it depends on where your stock, what the price of your stock is. So some of you, some of the stocks are priced over $200, which means that your $25 a week will only buy you a fractional share, which is also why the platform, going back to what Adrian mentioned earlier, the platform that you choose is important because you want a platform that will allow fractional share purchases as well, or fractional stock purchases, because you would be buying pieces of it.
And that question came up in one of the other groups. So the $25 was a minimum. So if you want to buy a full share and it's $200, knock yourself out. We're going to do that because at the end of this, we want to be able to say, this Spellman Investment Club, we put away X amount of dollars between now and the end of June. And let's see what kind of power we've done. Okay. But a minimum, the practices that you should be employing are discipline. Okay. So if it's weekly, like I look at my portfolio pretty much almost daily, but on Sundays, that's when I determine what I'm purchasing for the week. Just so that, and it could be a share, it could be a lot of shares. It just depends. So the reason why we're saying do a minimum of $25 a week leading up to the month is because it's a practice that you need to employ over time, because you can't really time the market, if you've heard that phrase. So the more consistency that you have in putting dollars in, the better off you're going to be long term.
Okay, so like I could be purchasing, say, $100 and another group member 50 of that same stock that we select. Okay. Okay.
That's right. Because at the end, we're going to look and see, how did your group do? If you take that one share, how did your group do from now until the end of the 5 months based on the pick that you all collectively chose?
Gotcha.
So it doesn't matter individually, everyone's in a different situation. So you want to put in $10,000. Somebody else may want to just put in, that 100 for the month. But at the end of the day, we're going to see, was your logic sound in evaluating that security so that you can amass wealth on all those different asset classes over time? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, Adrian, I had one more question, and Jennifer. So with this asset class stocks that we're doing now, of course, even within stocks, there's a wide breadth, say, of aggressive growth or value.
That's right.
Are we as a group, maybe are we to come to a consensus? Oh, we want to concentrate on value stocks versus super growth, or
That's up to you guys. We're not going to prescribe what you want to do. Jennifer just laid out, I thought, a beautiful framework. She gave you some tips and guidelines if you wanted to clue in on the beta, which shows more volatility of your stock, right? So if there's more volatility, there's a potential, like GameStop, right? Tons of volatility. So if you went in on GameStop, that beta would have been very, very high if you were tracking it daily, right? Because it was up, it was down, it was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's up to you. She also gave you another tip, which was, do you want small caps, medium cap, or large cap stocks? So your large cap stocks might be like AT&T. They've been around forever, right? You may not get a lot of movement, but they're stable, right? Versus a Robinhood. If they were open in the market as a publicly traded company, they're a new company. They just got here not long ago, right? So they're small, they have phenomenal growth going on, but they're going to have some bumps in the road too, which we saw with GameStop having that platform and people were disgruntled. So that's kind of where you are. One of the things that Jennifer didn't mention is just in your side time, like I'm a news junkie, you may just want to add, watch CNBC for 30 minutes a day. And it will help you because you may see the stock that you're choosing or researching, it'll pop up and it'll give you some tips. I would not follow what they say all the time. Do your own research because they're motivated by different things.
I did, in the list of stocks that you all have to choose from, there's a wide range. And so you'll find small, mid, and large cap. You're going to find the different sectors. And then you're going to find, based on whether, it's a growth stock or whether it's value, so all of those are represented in the list. And so it's up to you to convince your team members as to, what you what your pitch is, even to your own teammates, on why they should look at this versus that stock.
So ladies, we are at 7:57 and we actually have another meeting immediately following this. So we are going to have to wrap this up. You can reach us. If you want to send me an email, it's president@naascatlanta.org. Jennifer provided you with the information and we will be putting this presentation on our YouTube page. So if you want to go back and refer to any of the information that was shared today, search for NASC Atlanta on YouTube and all the presentations that we've had will pop up there. Okay?
Okay.
Real
Thank you,
quick,
Great
ladies.
presentation.
Jennifer,
Thank you.
do
So
you have a
much.
Good job. Thank
podcast
you.
to recommend?
I'm sorry.
Thank you for doing this.
Do you have a
There's,
podcast?
Yeah, Planet Money is a really good podcast to listen to that gives just updates on just anything market related. That for those of you, we didn't get to touch on it, but for those of you that had questions on what happened with GameStop, Planet Money has a couple of really good, like 10-minute podcasts that'll give you an explanation of what happened. And so it's short and it's bite size and it's really good to get you to hearing the terminology. So Planet Money.
Okay. Are you guys on Clubhouse? One last question.
Yeah.
I am, but I'm hesitant to use Clubhouse because
Yeah.
we're helping them make more money on that platform.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
all I need to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
I'll talk to you later, Karen, about that. There's a Black platform that we all should be gravitating towards instead of driving the valuation up for Clubhouse.
Gotcha.
All right,
Gotcha.
ladies.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks
Take care.
so much.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night.